I'm Matti Klenell. I'm a designer, product furniture designer, and also interior architect based here in Stockholm. And we are currently in my studio here in Södermalm, which is a quite big area in central Stockholm, and a little bit aside from the city center, where I have been working now for, 15 years when I moved here. And in the beginning, I moved here together with a collective of designers from different fields, and we used to share the space. And then over the years, people have dropped off, and now it's only me left. And I really like it here, and I find it really tricky to leave, and I probably will stay here for a long time and work with my practice. Yeah, that's a shelf that I put up a while ago, because a lot of the practice that we do here is three-dimensional, and a big help and a great tool for us when we're working is, since a few years back, is of course 3D printers that more or less every industrial designer uses today. And I have come to like the process to work with the 3D printer a lot, because you can, especially when I work with things that are tactile, that is close to the body, that is something that you as a human person touches and uses with your hands. It's incredible to use the 3D printer to sort of get really fast samples of what you're working on, to test it and feel it and then continue working. Also, of course, as a presentation tools towards clients, it's amazing to have that in-house here in the studio. So we have printed a lot of things here over the years, and I decided quite early to stick to white plastic when printing, and it becomes quite beautiful when you gather it. It's like a process wall somehow that you see behind me. And I think we planned last year a big exhibition that is currently on of my work, so actually the space here is pretty empty. A lot of the things that I have made has left the studio for this exhibition that goes on in Karlstad in the west of Sweden. It's a town where I'm originally from also, so it's like coming back home in a way. And for that exhibition, we built a lot of models and a lot of scale tests to see how to sort of use the space. And then we also actually printed my entire catalog in scale 1 to 5. So in the shelf behind me, you also see all my work more or less, but in a small scale. I think it's partly spot on to what I educated myself to. I studied interior design and furniture design at Konstfack, which is the main design and art college here in Stockholm. And I think originally I wanted to work more with space and work more with architecture and to sort of orientate myself in that direction. And it was during my studies where I realized that product design is something that I'm really interested in, and especially furniture design. But my approach to product design and to furniture design has always been through architecture. If I compare myself with somebody that is trained an industrial designer, I think the starting point is a little bit different for me, being a product designer but educated an architect somehow, which means that I think I consider space much earlier in the process, and I consider maybe also usability in relation to space in a different way compared to if you are trained an industrial designer, where I think the process is slightly different when I compare to friends I have that comes from that background. Then I have also sort of course, developed my interests and ideas over time, and I have also added fields that I have started to work within, mainly because of interest, but also a little bit to explore my past. I think I work quite a bit with glass design and glass art because I find the material fascinating, but also because I come from a background where both my parents are glass artists. So it was kind of, to start to work with that material was a little bit also to understand them and to understand where they were coming from, and also to maybe understand my childhood a little bit, where you had the glass workshop basically on your backyard at home, and you just found it dull and uninteresting, and then all of a sudden you realized the magic with that material. So glass design has actually become part of my practice to a quite big extent, actually, together with furniture design and lighting design. Actually, Iittala I have a very close relation to. We have collaborated since 2008, so I have now actually 13-year-long relation with them, and I have designed several products for them, both in glass and also other materials. And it has been a lovely collaboration in many ways, and given me also a chance to explore the Finnish design culture, and also to work with a brand where design is so central, and where you know how to develop a company through the use of design in an incredible way. I think that has also taught me a lot when collaborating with other clients, of course. I think historically there are very many brands in the Swedish glass industry that had that kind of fame. I think the most renowned is probably Orrefors, that was incredibly big in the 50s and 60s. But there was this big crisis in the glass industry that I think it took many companies down, and it was really tough for many glass industries all over Europe and in the Western world for many decades. Now you can see these companies coming back again, and I think Iittala has been kind of a beacon for many of them, actually, to see that you can actually be profitable and be interesting and also valid today as a glass manufacturer. I think I am more inspired by it than I actually ever would like to admit, because I can also see it in my work, and I think it's so easy that you as a designer, if you start to say that your main inspiration comes from nature, it becomes kind of a cliche. But at the same time, I think I get a lot of inspiration from it in terms of that you see structure, movement, materiality in nature that is very appealing when working with the materials you work with within furniture design, for example. So of course it is something that I take a lot of inspiration from, but it's not so that I go out in the forest and start to sketch from what I see and then it becomes a chair or a lamp or a glass or something like that. It's more of a subconscious kind of method or inspiration that I gain from it, as I think many designers or creative people do, because it is something that is close to most human beings. I think getting inspiration from nature is also to sort of bring some kind of human scale or human approach into your work, and that is something that I think I often try to do. I try to sort of give it a friendly approach or something that makes it appealing for the user. I think it's great that you don't ask me, do we need another chair? Because my answer to that is yes. But my relation to chairs is more, I think I struggle with them quite a bit. I actually, the other day, told myself that I should make a project just for myself, not towards a client or in collaboration with a client, to become good in designing chairs. Because I think that is also what is somehow challenging and what makes it interesting to designers, that it is a very tricky piece to design. You know, it could be extremely simple in terms of how you describe a chair. It's 4 legs and a backrest and a seat, and then you sit on it, and it could be comfortable or uncomfortable. But when you start to analyze a chair, how it's made and what makes a chair good, then it's extremely complicated, because the structure in relation to the human body is also very easily quite ugly and unappealing. And how to do that in a great way was something that I said to myself that this is something that I should actually explore the coming years, to sort of also get over this kind of stigma that the chair is somehow, for me, I did a project quite recently that was huge, that I worked on for many years, where we redesigned the restaurant for the National Museum here in Stockholm. And for that project, I was lucky to design quite many new chairs, because we did a restaurant interior where all the furniture was supposed to be new designed as a kind of statement for the museum when they reopened after 6 years of being closed and being rebuilt. And that project was actually very good for me, because then I started to make chairs and I started to sort of work with them a bit more light-handed somehow, but for a prestigious kind of goal or a prestigious client, which meant that there was a lot of effort put into it. And it helped me a lot, because then I started to sort of reveal the mystery of the chair somehow. But I think it's a journey that I have just started and where I would like to become much better. There is also a parallel there somehow to glassmaking that I mentioned to you earlier, that I'm interested in doing, because you have a similar object in glassmaking, and that is to design a really good drinking glass, which I, for some reason that I don't really understand, have absolutely no problem with. But to make a good drinking glass has the same kind of problem, the same kind of difficulties with everything is already done. It has to be tactile, it has to be appealing for the user, it has to be functional, etc., etc. And it should also be great in manufacturing and all these kind of struggles that you have as a designer. But within that field, it's very easy for me. But for some reason, when designing a chair, it doesn't come as natural. And I really would like to reveal how to get further there. I can sometimes see it a little bit the other way around, but it's in a way also the same way as you do, because I think that was also something I did a few years ago to test myself, and that was that my feeling was that when I was a young designer, I had loads of great ideas, but I had no tools for how to execute them. I didn't know how to realize all those ideas in my sketchbook because I didn't have the know-how. And at that time, at least, I don't know if that goes for me all the time, I felt I have no ideas, but I have loads of experience and know-how. So I actually started to look in my old sketchbooks from the 90s when I was in college. And I decided to remake old projects, to sort of do them again and to see what would they look like 20 years later with more knowledge. And that was actually pretty successful for a while. It helped me a lot in projects that I was currently working on, in pitches I did for clients, that I could actually, without embarrassment, take an old idea and then deliberately put that in a new context and work with it again. And I can actually recommend that if you have that feeling somehow, or if you are stuck with not getting new ideas, to look at the old ones and see what you can do with them now when you are actually in many ways a much better designer, because you are, but maybe not on an idea basis, but on a technical level. Then I think with experience, what I like a lot is also that you get so much faster and so much better in evaluating ideas. I can see that a lot since I started to have people working for me, that they have loads of great ideas, but what I can feel is that I have become so much better compared to what I was like when I was younger in evaluating ideas. And that is something that I, when trying to think positive, bring with me and think of and lean towards somehow. I actually don't do much textile design, but I've done a bit, and it's connected to the museum project that I mentioned earlier. We designed the furniture upholstery that is now coming into production for the manufacturer that helped us with the project. And I think it's extremely challenging to do that and to work with the reports and to make them work in the right way. But it's actually a field where I want to learn a lot more. And I'm really happy because I have some assignments at the moment that is about textile design and is also about pattern design also in other fields. And I think actually it suits me more than I thought it would. And I actually start to get into the construction side of it. In a way, it is a little bit like constructing a piece of furniture. You have to think very structural and you have to think very much out of the box in a way to sort of find ways how to create your pattern in a way that works. And I find it very, very challenging in an exciting way. I try to give the projects time. I think that's a very crucial thing for any project to become good, that if the overall schedule for a project from first sketch to a finished product on the market is too short, if you can see that if you get an assignment or a suggestion from a client, then I always try to stretch it. I'm always the happy person if people say, hey, we have to wait another 6 months before launching this. It's usually no problem for me because then you can develop it further. So time, I think, is a crucial aspect that you sort of built into the project for a good execution, and especially if you work with several projects at the same time. Then I actually think it's very important to believe in your first idea, to actually not be in all projects feel that you have to put too much effort into the idea, because usually the first idea is very good. And if you do that, or at least for me it is so, and if I believe in that, which usually is easier if you have a lot to do, then it's also easier to develop more projects. Because you become a little bit more light-handed, so to speak. You let go of pretension and you say yes to yourself. This is very much a self-confidence issue. You have to sort of very much boost yourself to believe in what you do and that you actually will come out on the other side in a good way. But I think that actually adds a kind of freshness to the project, that the sketch phase is maybe quite quick, and then you have a long period where you develop it and where you are able to take a step back and reflect over the project. And then, of course, what is very important to be able to run several projects at the same time is that you have assistants that are really good and can help you, and you can sort of build up some kind of teamwork in the studio that helps amazingly much. The production I have had over the last couple of years wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for the fact that I had really good people here in the studio helping me with the projects. And that has been an amazing development, I think, also for the studio here, to sort of go from being a one-man show, so to speak, to a place where we are sometimes several people working on one thing for a long time.